we'll hear on 91 first, and then we'll get the rest of the horse and buggy at the end with 41. So, Mr. Harrell, you have the floor, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. Sal Ruggiero, Deputy Administrator, Infrastructure Services. This is just a basic concept of, what we were going to lay in on Hanna Avenue. So you have a main building, a parking garage, and then two other facilities behind the main building. And this is an overview of the Hanna Avenue area where our project is, 2500 block. And as you can see, it's a warehouse. There's a lot of warehouses in there. And this is where we want to inspire change. The white section that you see depicts the demolition that has occurred on that property. So with us putting our facility in there, we want to inspire change in the area, and that's what this team is all about. But once this project's completed, it will fulfill a campaign promise made by Mayor Castor to bring government to neighborhoods. And secondly, by us building in the area, we hope to attract other businesses and development into East Tampa. So with that, go to the next slide, please.
The idea that this is just a warehouse district is not accurate. As you can see, we have an assisted living community right next to the Hanna Center, residential, apartments across the street, a church, apartments across the street, another church. You have the Hillsborough County Sunshine Line Service Center right there. And you also have the Tampa General Family Clinic. So this is a residential area, and the concern here is for mobility. We need to have mobility and safety first.
But also, we have two schools, an elementary school and a middle school in this vicinity. We have students walking all, to school, to and from, and it's very heavily congested with kids and buses as well. So I'm very much concerned about the impact of this on the students. And
the buses, you mean school buses? Because there's no county buses.
I'm talking about school buses.
Yeah.
And as you can see, if you go down 22nd Street, there's a bus hub right there, so the buses aren't going.
Who's going here? And you can see on this slide who's actually going to Hanna Avenue. Facility and fleet management is going out there. It's a small fleet operation. The building is going to be 30,000 square feet behind the main campus. And the other facilities is going to be 20,000 square feet. Now, this is important because part of the strategy here is to bring workforce development onto this campus. And we want to benefit from that. We want to be involved in that with facilities and fleet to develop future mechanics for the city, to develop future construction workers for the city, and also be part of the educational programs that are going to go on inside that building. The other thing that's important to look at on that chart is the wellness center, and that was a council request. So a city wellness center for employees is going in there. We're getting a three-story main structure that's 161,000 square feet. We're getting a parking garage that can handle up to 500 vehicles. Also in front of the campus, the front of the building that faces Hanna, there's over 100 parking spots that we start construction on January 18th with the completion date of the spring of 2023.
Thank you, Sal. Good afternoon. Adri Colina, Director of Logistics and Asset Management. When we've worked with our neighbors, and I will say that intently, Mayor Castor was very clear when she told us, and not only does she want us to go into the neighborhood, she wants us to be neighbors, and she wants us to be good neighbors. And I want to thank our partners, and those are our neighbors from the Northeast community, Live Oak Square, Woodland Terrace, River Grove, Hampton Terrace, Seminole Heights East, and Old Seminole Heights. I want to tell you that while I have learned what is important to them for this project, I've also learned a lot about them, and I have found their passion for this community and the passion to transform Tampa. I can tell you we have spoken many times. In fact, our first listening session, and we have intentionally called those listening sessions because we've been listening. Carol Gordon was clear, I want green space. And Carol can be credited with the green space that you will see in the design. Tim Keyports that you heard earlier. You know, in our April 26th listening session, Tim was sharing with us, they're speeding on 22nd Street. These are some of the traffic challenges that we're seeing. And we don't want to just tell you about them. We want you to come walk the neighborhood with us. We want to show you. And we took Tim up on that offer, and we were so glad to do it. We had a walking tour that took place in July. And I am proud to tell you that the people that went, it wasn't just the city officials that went. I mean, Vic B-Day was there, and he had 4 of his traffic engineers walking the neighborhood. We had with us our architect and the construction team, DPR. I mean, this has been a huge, huge partnership. When we walked that, we saw what the traffic pain points were, but I also learned why River Grove was named the street River Grove. It was because there was all the orange groves around. It was near the river. I learned that from a lifelong resident of that neighborhood. I learned that her grandson worked at the hardware store. I learned Carol Gordon's grandfather was the mayor of Tampa, Mayor Lovering. So we are creating relationships. We are making neighbors. We are being that neighbor, and we're so excited to be there. We have heard, and you have heard from Althea Wynn. She loves this project. This is a game changer for the neighborhood, and we're honored and proud to be part of the team making it happen. And I can't leave this podium without giving a huge shout out to our community engagement team, Frank Crum and Janelle McGregor. The job that they have done has been robust, has been outstanding, and second to none.
Just to echo on what Adri shared, when we came before you on March 13th and we said we were going to do some robust engagement, I'm proud to stand before you and say that's exactly what we did. So what's next? What's next is continuing that robust public engagement. Our job here is not done. As Adri echoed, even though we went out to the neighborhoods to educate them on this project, we too were educated, from the orange groves to the families that moved to that neighborhood because they were displaced from another part of the city. We want to continue that connection. We are focused on that whole neighborhood because we want to create those lasting impressions. We want to uplift every neighborhood in that East Tampa area.
So I want council to hear this and understand this, you know, and I've heard about some history lessons, but I want to make it clear that that end of town is known as East Tampa. And I'm hearing a lot of Seminole Heights in there, this and that, but I'm going to tell you, all that area was East Tampa, and it still is. There's some nice folks that have moved in, and we've kind of carved up and kind of changed some names for some boundaries. But I want to make it clear, making sure that we're not just saying Seminole Heights. We're saying it's an East Tampa project over there because you have River Grove Association over there. You've got Woodland Terrace Association over there. You've got Northeast Communities. You've got Live Oak Square. So I want to make sure that when we're talking, we just don't keep saying Seminole. We're saying it's an East Tampa project in the East Tampa area, so no one's left out because I have to hear that. So I just want to make that clear, make sure that message is getting out, that this is clearly a project for the east side of town.
So just a brief overview before I get into more details. As Sal mentioned, this is a LEED project, a sustainable project. So we have solar panels on the entire roof of the main building. We are filtering the stormwater runoffs on site, at least most of it in the rain gardens. We have trailers with solar panels, electric vehicle charging stations, and among other features to make this building as sustainable as possible and to follow that to be the leader in sustainability. Before I go into the overview of the design, I want to talk about the guiding principles. So after all these engagements, we're able to come up with the guiding principles. Those help to inform every design decision throughout design, but also during construction, so that we make sure that the goals of this project remain. And this is a successful project. And the guiding principles are community connectiveness, flexibility and collaboration, well-being and sustainability, mobility, and incubator. And they align directly with the mayor's strategic goals, strengthening community-centric services, increasing housing affordability, since we have housing group moving here, establishing sustainability and resilience, improving infrastructure and mobility, and enhancing workforce developments. Next slide. So here's a first look at Hanna Square. The shape of it is actually influenced by the shape of Rogers Park, which is now Rogers Golf Course. Because of the strong history of it, we were just fascinated by the shape of it around the Hillsborough River, but also there's the fascinating history behind that park. So we're going to bring that so that you're greeted by an important part of East Tampa as soon as you come to this building. So as soon as you enter, you're greeted with a 2-story high green living wall that talks about, again, the idea of sustainability and well-being. This is one of the views of one of the community rooms. The idea here is that before you go to the community room, there is a pre-function space, which we call the gallery, which will have rotating arts by all the arts that the city owns. So you have another experience through that. But when you go to the community room, the community rooms that face Hanna Square, so that there's this bridge between the outreach programs of the city and the public. So we'll have workforce developments, with technology and arts spaces. You have the culinary program. It's more than just, training people. It's also about making them more creative, right? So they can be more competitive on the workforce. We have video and sound recording rooms that will be both used by the city and the public as well. Next slide. Here's a view of the second level as you go up the terraces. This is the second level terrace that has more lounge waiting spaces, collaboration spaces. There's a series of skylights bringing more natural light in. On the third level, there is additional spaces for the neighborhood and community affairs. So you find your way again. The third level, the terraces. There's another reception and lounge space.
Big B-Day Mobility Department. Good afternoon, Council and Chair. A lot of thought has gone into the needs of the community, as well as the needs of the various departments that will access this Hanna facility. Our approach with transportation has been exactly the same. What are the needs of the community? How will they get to this facility? How will that traffic be accommodated? What are the broader needs of the community beyond just this facility alone? And then what are the needs of the various departments that will be housed within this facility? Typically, on a roadway like Hanna, which has between 22nd and 30th is the busiest stretch of Hanna, and it's about 8,000 vehicles a day. That's not a lot for a 2-lane road.
How will you be impacted?
Well, I live on 31st, and it's a short street. So sometimes when they're working on 30th, all of that traffic comes on 31st, which is just east of 30th.
Okay.
And it's going to increase the traffic.
Right.
And I'm thinking, for all of this traffic, what are they going to do? Hanna can't accommodate all that traffic. 30th can't accommodate all of that traffic. That's only single lane traffic on 30th. Here, all of this is just single lane traffic.
And for 2-lane roads that have up to 15,000 vehicles a day, what is recommended by best practice are intersection improvements, because a majority of the delay and the friction is at intersections. So as part of the mitigation for traffic, we will be looking at the intersections of 22nd, the intersections of 30th, and right in front of the facility. But we didn't just stop there. The traffic study that is ongoing was mentioned earlier. The study was initiated after our neighborhood meeting, the walking tour, if you will, which also ended up being a scooting tour because we brought sit-down scooters that will also be deployed in these 4 neighborhoods in East Tampa because they're good for persons of varying abilities. And we saw a lot of neighbors kind of take us on for those sit-down scooters. So our goal with that engagement, beyond just the listening session, was to walk the neighborhoods, to scoot the neighborhoods with the neighbors, and understand, beyond accommodating traffic, what other challenges are there in this area. And we had plenty of really good information. We look forward to continuing this engagement with the community, but just some highlights. We heard that on 24th Street, where there are no sidewalks currently, it's parallel to 22nd Street and used as a cut-through in certain instances. There are a lot of people that use assistive devices for mobility. And so we will be looking at how we can accommodate a sidewalk along the stretch as part of our over and above approach. We heard about a lot of intersections where it's not safe for pedestrians to get around. We're looking at adding crosswalks or raised crosswalks where possible. We heard about lighting that can be improved in certain parts of the 4 or 5 neighborhoods within this block. And we're going to make those enhancements as well. So that has been our approach, is what is good for the 4 or 5 neighborhoods in East Tampa within this area, and how we can improve conditions beyond just accommodating traffic for the Civic Center. Some other considerations that we have are not just about vehicular trips, but multimodality. Marseille touched upon that as well. We're adjacent to a railroad track, which is part of a broader regional discussion about commuter rail. That was taken into consideration when selecting the site. We're looking at micro-mobility options that will be available citywide. These options primarily are first mile, last mile trips, but also in neighborhood trips that connect people to their homes with parks or libraries or wherever else they might move to within the neighborhood. And then these first mile, last mile options also assist as the area commercializes. To Sal's point, our hope is that this is the start of inviting newer businesses and better services to enliven this entire area.
Mr. Bide, thank you very much. The number one concern I had heard through this whole process from the neighborhoods was transportation. And you addressed that in your statements. There is one other thing that I'm hoping that we can discuss maybe with Hart in the future, that there might be some curb cuts or some notch outs for the buses to go ahead and enter into an area where they can load and unload passengers from the safety of the bus stops there. And that way traffic can pass by.
There's a bus stop, but there is no sidewalk. And this is Saturday traffic.
I'm also hoping that we can have wider, when I say wider, I mean much wider, 10-foot or even, maybe even wider, surrounding the perimeter of this so that people can use the wheelchairs, use these scooters. Kids can walk to school without having to fear the traffic that will be surrounding this. My last request is that, is there going to be property access to the CSX rail lines from this property so that in the future, whether it be steel wheel or rubber wheel, those right-of-ways can be used to move people back and forth? Are we going to have property access to that CSX right-of-way?
So the advantage is that our property for the Civic Center directly abuts CSX's property. So any activation of the line in the future creates the opportunity to have direct access. And to that end, we will continue to work with various regional stakeholders to keep this facility in mind as we talk about activation of the rail line. And on the hard part of the conversation as well, we are in active discussions with HART. Currently, this area is served by one bus route, but as HART expands their service down the road, we will continue to make sure that this facility and this neighborhood receives very good access. ADA is baked into every aspect of our study, but we're going to look to go beyond that as well. And our goal will be access for all, as is our strategy.
Let's see, let's start out at the basics. And I don't know who can answer this, and I might have asked this question last January, and if I did, I apologize. What is the current zoning across this entire parcel And are we confident that the maintenance operations, the fleet maintenance operations, are consistent with that zoning?
It's IG zoning, and yes, it is. We're good to go on that.
In regard to the solar panels, I'm like Mr. Citro, I'm excited about solar panels on the main building. But I've been pushing the city to put solar panels on all of our buildings, including the convention center, et cetera, whenever we have a large roof. I don't know why we wouldn't want to maximize our solar panels. So is it structurally feasible to have put solar panels on top of the garage as well as, I don't know if the garage has rooftop parking or not, but on top of the garage as well as the other two auxiliary buildings?
So I can answer first. The parking garage, the top level is parking.
Okay.
So you would have to build
Well,
actually
that answers that question. That's fine.
So we did that study, and it was the cost. You don't recoup the money for the costs.
And then how about the other two auxiliary buildings? That's a lot of square footage or a lot of roof footage.
Yeah,
the other
two are metal roofs, so you can add them anytime.
Okay, and why didn't we include them this time? I mean, I think Sal, and you could answer that too if you have the answer. But we've got you said we're generating 30% of the electricity used on the complex, assuming we've got twice as many. Those roofs look very, very big on those other two buildings. Why not maximize it and go for 100% of the electrical?
So, I mean, I'll have to, take that one because, I was trying to keep costs down and we chose not to go there on the two metal buildings.
But there's always a cost benefit return on solar, and everybody says that with solar getting less and cheaper and cheaper, and we're supposed to be relying more on solar and less on greenhouse, producing less greenhouse gases, et cetera. So here's what I'll do with that one.
Yeah.
Is I'd like to put a big bookmark in it and have you go back to Whit Reamer and to DPR and the other folks to really take a deeper dive on why we couldn't put solar on the rest of it. And I understand the upfront cost might increase. Okay, Charlie Miranda might have paid a little bit more for his electric vehicle, but at the end of the day, he's not buying gas. Same with Joe Citro. So so you've got to weigh those two things. And I'm not asking for an answer today, but I'd like you to explore that with the appropriate staff. Will it be a union-friendly project? In other words, frankly, many council members as well as the mayor have received lots of union support over the years, and now that we're building a $100 million project with 4 buildings, et cetera, I think we want to make sure that that union tradespeople, including union carpenters and union elevator folks and union steel and iron workers, are included in this.
I just put solar at the house, and not this bill, but the bill that I get next month is the one that tells me, was it worth it or not? I was guaranteed that more than likely my electric bill would not be $19 a month, so from over 100 plus. So it usually pays out between 7 and 8 years. So whatever money you put in, you're actually going to get it back. So I understand what the answer was, but yeah, it costs more to put it in. Guess what? It costs one hell of a lot more if you don't put it in, because you can't control the rate of cost of fossil fuel and whatever you're buying your electricity from, what it's going to go to. And believe me, I don't think it's going to go down. I think it's going to go up. So if you make an investment now of larger than 30%, I think it'd be an increment of saving money, because your front load is X plus Y, but you're going to save X plus Y plus another, whatever you want to call it, to the second power, because your cost is not going to go up once you're hooked up and once you've already made your payments to it. So it's something that you have to look at it really strong. And I think in, let's say, maximum 8 years, your return, your investment is higher, much higher than you're going to get on any interest. In fact, it's double the interest payment back that you're going to get when you float a bond. This bond, I think, if it goes out right, it comes 4% the highest. I would imagine you're going to get a 7 or 8% return on your money when the solar's paid off.
After the first time, I think it was, we talked about this a few months ago, I got in my car after the meeting and drove out to Hanna Avenue, and you showed the aerial view, but I did not do an analysis of all the buildings, but it looks like warehouses and commercial buildings from the 80s or 70s or something like that. And of course, behind that are neighborhoods. And we asked you all to be sensitive to the neighborhoods and listen to them. And we've had a bunch of concerns that have been sent to us in the last couple days, and we forwarded them to you all. And you all just made a public commitment to continue to do public engagement, to continue to listen to them, and I hope you'll be able to make changes based on that feedback. And you covered most of the specific issues already. One thing I want to say is that the design, I think, is beautiful. Congrats to Saul Fleshman and his team and whoever else worked on it. It's a beautiful design. I don't know what the neighborhood said about it, but it's if you're going to build a building that you want to last 100 or more years, it's a beautiful design. And where did the idea for this come from? Why are we doing it? Why did we pick East Tampa? Why would we spend $100 million? We'll get into the financials in a minute, but why? Could you just tell the public why we're doing what the whole, whose idea was it? What was the genesis of it? Why did we pick East Tampa? And then what's the plan for the future as the city staff grows? Is there a plan to grow? Could we accommodate 1,000 in the future? Are we going to move other people from downtown? What's the long-term plan?
We have to go back to Mayor Castor's campaign promise of bringing government to a neighborhood. And I think that's key right there. Number one, it's central to the city. And number two, we thought that, by putting in this facility with the workforce development component, that it would spark or inspire other businesses to follow suit with us. So we wanted to be a government leader, and that's why we chose East Tampa.
So there are a lot of people, especially in my district, who are very fiscally conservative, and their point of view is that government should pay the least amount possible for space. Can you just tell the public, and this is not a trick question, just so we can get the information out there, can you just let the public know why it's important? You all talked about co-work space, you talked about collaboration and all. Why is it important to have a facility like this, and why would government spend more for some of the extra finishing touches instead of renting some block concrete 50-year-old building somewhere else?
So what the decision was made by the administration was to design a building that strategically we can use, and strategically it's going to help East Tampa.
And as a retired city worker, and I kind of see the Castor's administration, Sal, who's been in the city, and the chief, some of these buildings, I hate to say it, some of these buildings that we've been in have been sick buildings. I know tons of police officers who were in the old building on 1710, how many officers probably died from cancer. And the city keeps buying and trying to renovate some of these old buildings, and some of these buildings are sick. And if some of the employees don't like the environment they work in, I don't like the environment I work in here on this 3rd floor. I have no privacy at all. The walls are so thin, we're like boxed in. But when I go to next door, I see executive staff has lovely offices, and I'm the councilman, the chairman of the city council, and my office looks like crap. I don't feel comfortable where I work at. The amenities aren't there. I look at the walls, my age is right up on me. I can't even have a conversation if I want a conversation. So I think sometimes it goes down to, how do your employees feel comfortable? How do I feel in my work environment, my conditions? When I look at this building, I'm not saying how I'm going, where my vote, but what I can say, when I look at the building, I can say, I always use the word wow. The thing for to put a message, wow. I can say, wow, the community, the people might feel good by going to work there.
I just want to commend the team for this design. When we talk about, the aesthetics of this building, we talked about, the solar, the green, it's a 21st century building with the technology needed, where it's sustainable, it makes sense, it saves money. We know that a lot of these departments are in places where we're paying rent, and we're essentially throwing that money away, giving another landlord money, where in this case, as already has been mentioned, we own the property, we'll own the building, we'll have all these different departments and services, basically a one-stop shop. In regards to the design and architecture, I have to commend the folks involved with that. You look at the building next door, T-Mob, it's a brutalist design. It's a nice design, but it's of that style. You look at Old City Hall, the building that we're in, and it's a beautiful, unique building, historic, over 105, now 106 years old, and something that is really an iconic building here in downtown and in the city of Tampa. This building, it's a modern design, but it goes back to a lot of mid-century modern elements. I see a lot of use of wood, metal, structures that you would have seen in the 1950s and early 1960s. And I bring that up because it is a building that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, will be special, will remain iconic, will be unique in its design, where people will say that is from that era, or it looks back to the past, that mid-century modern design, but at the same time it's timeless. It's not going to be an old and outdated building anytime soon or anytime from now to 100 years, I don't think. I think it's something that we'll always be proud of. We'll be proud of the solar technology, the green energy. We'll be proud of the green space. We'll be proud of essentially what has already been said, basically a civic center, because it'll be open to the public. It's not just for city employees, it's for everybody. We talk about where this is located, and Chairman Goods said it. This is East Tampa. This is an historic $100+ million investment in the community that we can all be proud of, that the neighborhoods can be proud of. We talk about East Tampa never getting or always being ignored. This is a huge investment, and I know that it'll act as a catalyst moving forward for other noteworthy and meaningful projects.
I get calls all the time. Why can't we get speed bumps on Hanna? Why can't we get this and that? So I'm hoping that we're not just talking about doing a study just for 22nd and 30th Street, but we need to be doing a study just a little bit past 30th Street, because that's an issue on Hanna already. So we can't do a little bit of something and still do nothing. So if we're going to do a study, we need to do a study, because that street is busy. I'm not going to deny that. All up to 40th Street. I can tell you that because when I leave here, I go straight to Mother's house, which is 1 block north of Hanna.
Our study area does cover the 5 neighborhood area in East Tampa, encompassed between Nebraska and 40th to the west and east, respectively. Hillsborough to the south, and Sly Avenue to the north.
All right, great, great.
Yeah, to reiterate, we are taking an over and above approach and looking at issues in that overall area, and we've allocated budget accordingly, which is more than just for the traffic mitigation for the facility.
And I did go to Mr. Fleming's in the house, right about another three or four blocks up the street. So everybody in that community I know personally. So I know how that community is. I know how it breathes. I know about the people who know Wood Manor, how that community has changed a little bit. So I know the community, I know Hanna. So what I'm telling to you right now is make sure that we don't do half, we do a complete, so there's no coming back saying, well, we should or we shouldn't. So that's number 2 issue, is making sure that mobility is done, that 24th Street with Ms. Gorman and those folks in that community right there, making sure that we satisfy the needs of those folks. Sal, I don't know how much maintenance is going to, it seems to be a big issue about, the mechanical. How much maintenance is going to be done there?
So
let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Like I say, it's going to be a sedan line, okay? They do about 200 PMs a month. There's not a lot of vehicles being towed. Our sedans are pretty efficient. In addition to that shop, there'll be the administrative offices, for the manager and the supervisors. But it's not going to be a heavy equipment operation. It's tied in, with the workforce development, which we think is very important, but
no garbage trucks, no big heavy equipment. Just,
body shop? Body shop?
No, it's going to be what I just detailed, okay?
But no body work?
Most of the body work, we do some of it, but most of it's contracted out.
Is this a good opportunity for this neighborhood to say, well, there's going to be some money, but let's put it to use properly?
I do believe that it's going to enhance our neighborhood. Okay. I do. We need to just move on. We are not out in the suburbs anymore.
Right.
We are in central Tampa. We are in the city. The
Right.
city is growing, so I think the building will enhance our neighborhood.
all right, Mr. Scalpers moved it.
Which one?
41, he going.
91.
All right, he wants to move 91 first. Mr. Scalpers moved 91. Mr. Miranda has seconded. Roll call.
Item number 41 under Finance Committee, I move item number 41.
All right, Mr. Miranda's moved it. Mr. Miranda has seconded. Roll call.
Maniscalco? Yes. Vieira? Yes. Citro? Miranda?
Yes.
Dingfelder?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goode?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Citro being absent.